Hi, Julie Jones from SSB Performance, Smarter, Stronger, Better Mindset Training, here with this week's Mindset Made Simple Tip of the Week, brought to you by Game Day Sportswear. This week we're talking about the power of pink and a plan. It's October, it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We're almost at the end of October, which I really can't believe, and I cannot let this month go by without reminding you or the women in your life that you love to go get a mammogram if you're 40 or over. Had I not done that, had I not listened to my body, had I not gotten my first mammogram and then progressively gone through the next stages of finding out what that mammogram said, I probably wouldn't be here recording this today. When I was 32, I decided to listen to my body. I decided to go get a mammogram. I remember sitting in the waiting room with all these old women. They're all talking about their mammograms and their mastectomies and all the things they had gone through, and I thought, what in the heck am I doing sitting here? I was ridiculously fit, 31 years old at the time, thinking, what is going on? But I knew what I was coming up against. I knew what the doctor was going to say before I even had a test. And then I went on to have the test, and I was even more certain based on the things that came to play. Needless to say, during that time, things kept getting more and more interesting and more overwhelming. I started to research all the options. They were telling me all the things that I could do. One day we were at the Cleveland Clinic. I had 5 appointments. I lost 5 pounds in that time. I probably didn't drink enough water or their scales are bad. I don't know. But out of pure mental fatigue, mental stress. But it was overwhelming. And any of you that have gone through a cancer diagnosis understand this. And you know as well, and even if you haven't been through this, maybe you've been around someone who's been in this situation, or you've had an example of your own that proves that when we start to do all kinds of research and we start to overthink, we get overwhelmed. It is really stressful. I remember thinking, can't someone just treat me like a 5-year-old and tell me what to do? I had all these options on my treatment. Was I going to do this? Was I going to have a mastectomy? Was I going to have a lumpectomy? What was I going to do? They gave me all the percentages. I started to go online and find out all the different things that could happen or would happen or might happen. I started to think about how I was going to feel after I had these surgeries or not. What was I going to regret? A million things. And then I made a decision. I made a decision based on what I thought was right, based on my strengths, based on what I wanted for my life. And that's when everything changed for me. I started to regain control. Yes, I had help. I went to see Dr. Ziegler, our sports psychologist. We did visualization 3 times a week, which was a great thing that was really helpful me in regaining my control. But more than anything, it started to guide my attitude. It started to guide how I felt. It started to guide my behaviors, which changed the decisions that I was able to make as new variables came in. And whether or not we're deciding what to do with a life-saving treatment, or whether we're deciding what to do to help us perform better, the same things apply. I was talking to one of my top-level tennis players last night, and she was talking about a match that she had last weekend against a kid who had a big kick serve, and it was coming up on her, and she wasn't returning the ball well. So we talked about what the options were. What were the options? I could step up into the court, and I could get it before it spins, sort of like getting to the front of the box before the ball has a chance to break. She could step back and let the ball come into her sweet spot and be more patient on it. Or she could play right in the middle and decide not to go for the big shot, but just to get it back to the center of the court, take a little pace off of it, and play then the next volley and set herself up to win that. So we talked about what her strengths were. She doesn't like to sit back. In fact, she felt like she was sitting back and then playing right in to the hands of her opponent. She thought stepping up might be too aggressive because at that point you don't have as much time to react and take in all the variables. So what she decided was that she would sort of stay in her normal position and take a little bit of the pressure off of going for the winner right then and there and letting it play out, seeing what the information that she could gather, then what she could do from there. But the bottom line is she decided that next time this happens to her, she knows what her plan is. And then she went on to start to visualize what she would do in these situations. What would her return look like? What did her footwork need to be? How would she look? How can she stay calm? How can she read the ball? And remember, she's just playing the ball. She's not playing the opponent. She's playing the ball. How could she keep it as simple as possible? How could she set a plan and then be able to react and adjust to the variables? And the thing of it is once you have a plan, you actually free up mental space to be able to take in new information. You're not thinking about step by step, like, oh my gosh, what if? What if I do this and then I'm not happy? What if I do this and then my chances of recurrence get higher, or they are higher as I get older. They said that I had a 1% chance of recurrence for every year that I lived. I was 32. I want to live to be 100. So I had to make the decisions based on my strengths, my desires, and what they were telling me at the amazing Cleveland Clinic, of course. I've been listening to the doctors, but they're all giving me these options that I can get to decide. Just like my tennis player, she can decide whether she wants to step up, stay back, stay in the middle, and play it that way. The bottom line is this. When we make a decision, we have to stick with it in the act. We can't be second guessing what we're going to do, or we will for certain fail. If we've made a decision and we play big and we act big and we commit big, we've got a much better chance of being successful. Does that mean we can't adjust? No, we have to adjust. Winners adjust. But winners also decide. They put a plan together. They think about all the things that could go wrong and they plan for those as well. What could be wrong with my decision? What could be wrong with my approach? All right, well, if I do play in that position, what if the ball does come on me? How am I going to adjust my racket to get it back to the center of the court on the other side of the net so that then I can get myself back into position to return again, to get into the volley, to set myself up for the winning shot? But the bottom line is, until we decide, we can't act. Until we decide we're going to act timidly or we're going to act reactively. And nobody reacts best. They plan and then react based on the information that they have rehearsed in their mind. When I made my decision, I thought a lot about how I was going to feel after I was going to have my mastectomy. I figured out that losing my pinky finger was probably going to be worse for me than losing what I was going to lose in my mastectomy. I was the only one that was really going to know that was the case. Everybody would see that I didn't have a pinky finger. These were my decisions, best for me. But had I second-guessed them all the way through, I could still be second-guessing my decisions 30 years later or 20 years later. Not 30 years. I'm not that old. But the bottom line is this. You and I both work best in structure. After I found out my diagnosis, I remember calling my mom. And my dad answered the phone, and I said, hey, let me talk to Mom. He's like, why, what? Because he was nervous as heck. And as I was talking to her, I remember just driving. And I was driving home. I was driving home to Akron, a house that I hadn't lived in for 20 years. Because when we're under pressure, we resort back to our habits. We don't rise to occasions. We fall back on habits. In fact, when the doctor came in to tell me about my diagnosis, he told me what it was, and I stopped listening because I was under pressure. Fortunately, I regathered myself and went out to the hallway and said, hey, come back. I got to write down what you said because I've got people I've got to tell. But when we're under pressure, we don't want to have to wait to decide then because our decisions aren't going to be good. We're going to go for what's comfortable. We're going to go with what's familiar. And comfort and familiar don't make winners normally. In fact, if we rely on comfort and we rely on familiarity, we will probably not be comfortable with what happens in the end. Because we will not have planned to do our best. We will not have taken in all the variables we need to tell our parents what's going on with our health. Or to get home instead of driving to Akron, instead of driving to the home that I had lived in for I don't know how many years at that point. But again, under pressure, we fall back on what's comfortable. We want to be familiar. We want to avoid change if all possible. Making a plan, taking in all the information, and then committing to that and adjusting where needed is going to help us be our best. So your job now is to go out and commit to telling everyone you know that's 40 or over to go get their mammogram. Why? Because it saved my life. And it can probably save someone that you know. In fact, 1 in 8 of the women around you, if you coach a women's team, 1 in 8 of them will have breast cancer themselves. 1 in 8 of their mothers will have breast cancer. 1 in 8 of the women you know will be diagnosed with this. And early detection saves lives. It saved mine. And I hope that it will save someone that you love too. Have a great week. Manage the moments. Make your plans. Be ready to adjust, but make your plans because it will change how you feel. It will change how you think. And it will change how you behave. And you will behave and perform at your best. Have a great week.